And now turning back to the Las Vegas shooting where 59 people were killed when Stephen Paddock opened fire from his Mandalay Bay Resort hotel room. Now, time and time again, these mass shootings bring us back to the question of how to survive if you get caught in an active shooter situation. Joining me now to talk more about this is Richard Smith, a former United States Marine and San Antonio police officer. Now, you had years of training and experience that led you to start contingency.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, your mission, sole mission, is to help people prepare and survive an attack. So in a case like this, what can people do? Because this shooter had a vantage point and bullets were flying above their heads.
Absolutely. This incident in Vegas is new to us. It's new to the law enforcement industry. It's going to change the way we look and respond globally to these events. But when we look at it and we look at the citizens' response, it really doesn't change what they do. What we need to do is first understand that we need to prepare. We need to have these conversations. We need to understand that these events occur. So when we talk about preparation, we bring our family into these conversations and say, okay, if something bad happens at this event, how are we going to leave? What is our exit strategy? So when we arrive, we should look at the exits. We should look at maybe the entrance we came in is not the exit we're going to leave. But before we move past that, we also have to understand when these events spur off is we can't deny the events happening. We always say denial is the #1 killer in any active shooter event. We hear time and time again, well, I thought it was fireworks, or I thought somebody dropped something in the storeroom. We survive these events by responding effectively within seconds. Seconds matter. So when we realize that we hear something out of the norm, we hear these pops, we have to take action. I just came back from Los Angeles and I was in the airport and an alarm was going off on a door and people were just walking by the alarm. No one stopped to take a moment to assess what was really happening. And so we need to do that. We need to pay attention and be aware of our situation and surroundings.
When you talk about preparing ahead of time, do you recommend drills, maybe having code words with your family to find the nearest exit and have that as a signal to leave?
So sure, and when we talk about planning, it's going to be really dependent on age, right? So when we talk about preparing our teenage kids and our husbands and our wives, then we can have more effective communication. But in law enforcement, we always had a safe word for our families. If something bad happened, if I was to call my wife by her maiden name, she was to leave and take our kids with her. There's no time for discussion then. She's just got to find the nearest exit. But when you talk about kids, you play the exit game and you come up with that code word and we say that word, then we're all going to hold hands and we're going to go out that closest exit. But when we talk about the generality of how do you survive the event when it happens, is you got to remember, you run, you hide, and you fight. You got to get out of that event. When you look at the video footage in Vegas, you have the folks just laying on the ground. And you got to remember in this type of environment, just like you said, he has elevation. He's shooting down into the crowd.
Right.
He's not shooting at individuals. He's shooting at crowds of people. So you break away from the crowds. You get away from those crowds and you find an exit and you get out. And if you can't find an exit, what you have to do is you have to find some place that, and I heard the chief say it on an interview, make yourself small. Find that cover, find that concealment and hide.
We talk about just when something like this happens and people can freeze, there's just a lot of anxiety happening. I mean, what can you do? I mean, any tips on just how to break through that?
So it's sad but true. We live in a different world. So the days of just blindly going to events and not thinking about self-preservation are over. So we do have to start surviving these events today by the conversations we have with our family today. We have to talk to our kids and we have to talk to our wives. And we're talking about active shooter, but it might not be an active shooter, maybe a fire event. It's just generally being safer in large groups in our workplace and in our homes. And we just have these conversations up front about that.
All right, Richard Smith, thank you so much for sharing all the ways we can protect ourselves and our family.
Thank you for having me.